beach wear. I'm going to Bali next week, so I'm wearing my authentic shirt from Indonesia I got last time. Quick, totally un-alcohol related thing. They actually color this shirt yellow first, the lighter color, and then they trace the pattern of the yellow that you see now in wax, and then they dip it in the darker color next. And then that darker color colors the spots in between all the wax, and then they take the wax off. And that's called batik shirt making. And it's fucking cool, and this shirt is cool, and I'm going to Bali anyway. I also have something very cool. Lotte Mart, always known as the coolest place to get alcohol. They actually have Gwahaju. I can't believe it. I've made this before in the makgeolli making classes that I took. So basically, you'd make a really small amount of makgeolli. You'd put a little bit more rice than normal in rather than the water, a little sweeter, and then you'd let it ferment for like 4 days, which is not a long time. And then bang, you hit it with the 40% soju, and that kills all the yeast, right? Kills all the enzymes. And then you just let it sit. And it, because the heat of the summer doesn't really affect the yeast anymore, there's nothing that can really happen. Whatever happened in those 4 days as far as flavor goes is done. And then you just basically age it so that all those flavors that you've already created can meld together, mellow out a bit. And, you know, you age hard liquor, similar, right? Mellow it out, age it a bit, get some nicer flavors out of it. That's what this is. So Bekseju is actually not uncommon. Anyone who's ever been to a restaurant that has decent meat, I'm not even talking about expensive meat, but a lot of the places that have a little bit nicer pork, a little bit nicer that, they'll have just the regular Bekseju, picture shown here, which is basically Cheongju with a lot of aromatics in it. This is basically that makgeolli that they make normally, I suppose, and then they shock it with that high-proof alcohol. So this is actually 18%. It's 500 mils too. This is a bigger bottle than you'd usually get for Bekseju. Bekseju is like a soju bottle size, the normal ones. So 375, so it's a little bigger, quite a lot stronger. And this basically says like, hey, limited summer edition. And this is good summer drink. If you can chill it to get the makgeolli prepped for those 4 days, you can play with that. 5 days, 6 days, 3 days, whatever. Everyone will have their own recipe. But as long as you shock the yeast with the high-proof soju, you don't have to worry about temperature control anymore. You just age it. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to age it at like, 40 degrees. But this becomes less important now that the act of fermentation and the enzymes in the yeast are dead, right? So, yeah. This is... actually, let me read the aromatics, because there's actually quite a bit. Gamcho, which is licorice root. Insam, ginseng. I just call it insam now. I've been in Korea too long. I just call it insam now. Oh, in English, yeah, ginseng. Gugija, which are like goji berries, kind of. Suguk, hwangi, sengang, gepi. So ginger and cinnamon. Ogapinamu, which is like a berry from a tree. It's like they include the wood too. And then the nuruk. 1 second, let me look up a few things. So basically, the bogryong part is the Wolfiporia extensa gins is a fungus. It's a mushroom. You know, you get those, they're called Reiki mushrooms. They're super expensive. They're in traditional medicine. I think it's similar to that. I'll put a picture in here. And then we have, again, I have to Google these things because Papago doesn't actually translate them correctly. When you Google the Korean word, it'll come up with the Latin, which, again, doesn't quite help us. Astragalus propincus. It's like a root. Mongolian milk vetch. These are like super like specific herbs or roots or plants. And there's one more, and that is hydrangea, which is a flower. So I know what that is. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff in here. And so, like regular Bekseju, which is a Cheongju rice wine, the clear stuff, they basically make that, and then they dump a bunch of soju in it. So, this is hilarious. This is hilarious. I'm like, God damn, that's dark. And then I was looking at the bottle, and it's like, hold on. You'll see when I pour it. It gets even more obvious when I pour some of this. This is not a makgeolli cup, but it's clear and it'll give you an idea of what it looks like. Using a porcelain or whatever ceramic thing wouldn't really do the color justice. It's quite light, as Gwahaju is. And if you're putting soju in it, soju's clear, so that's not going to affect the color. But I think they're going for that, like, wow, that's really dark and deep, honey. Let's get one of those. And then it's not even plastic either. Like, the glass has been, you can see the glass at the top is not like that, but I don't know how they colored the glass. But regardless, oh man, it has that like really earthy makgeolli of all those herbs and roots, right? Mushrooms don't help either if you're trying to avoid the earthy smell. Probably don't put mushrooms in there. But it smells basically like Gwahaju does. Which, again, I talked about that. If you're at a restaurant and they have Gwahaju, it's worth a try if you've never had it. Florally, earthy, kind of light, rice winey kind of drink. It's fairly mass-produced, so this is not like a really rare find. It's not a super nice one, but it's worth having, and I enjoy having them once in a while. They're nice. They're nice. They're nice enough. Oh, man. I get that the ginseng comes through. There's that, again, ginseng, how do you describe the flavor, right? Earthy and like permanent marker vapory to a degree. I don't know how to explain that. It's like explaining raspberry. All my viewers who've had raspberries before, you know what it tastes like, but describe a raspberry, right? It's hard. Raspberry is a base flavor, right? It's something you use to describe other things with, right? Oh, it's boozy in a way that makgeolli isn't. Makgeolli rarely gets up to 18%, right? I mean, your average green bottle soju is going to be 18%. So this, although it doesn't quite burn as much, because there's other stuff going on. All of those roots and plants that we talked about, the fact that there's essentially makgeolli in here. Now, they don't keep any of the grains in. They would siphon off the top layer of the they would leave the rice in the bottom and siphon it off to make this, just like they do with Gwahaju. But yeah, it's a little stronger, but because of the other stuff going on in there, there's like a milky texture, sweetness from the makgeolli. A lot of the rice gets converted into sugar when you make it. And because you kill the fermentation, a lot of those sugars remain and don't become fermented from the yeast, right? Like makgeolli, the enzymes convert it into sugar, and then the yeast convert that into alcohol, right? But because you stop that right in the beginning of the process, any sugar that got released from the rice, from the enzymes, does not get to be transformed into alcohol. No, but then you're not getting enough. You're getting 40% soju dumped in it. So there's no worry about alcohol being high in that. That's going to happen anyway. But those residual sugars remain. So these are super hard to find, especially at Lotte Mart. Good God. I mean, I've seen them in like really nice bottle shops, and I don't mean beer, but I mean like the Korean ones. And they're not cheap either. This was 13,600. Now the Gwahajus that you can get at the really nice places, they're usually not 18. They're going to be considerably higher. And you're paying more because they're dumping like 45, 50% soju from Andong into this makgeolli, right? So you're going to get more alcohol for that price, but I don't usually get it because I just don't, it's hard for me to justify spending 50, 60 bucks on stuff unless it's super once in a while, and I just don't like hard liquor that much to justify that for me, right? But for 13,600, does it taste amazing? No, but it is good. And again, this is limited edition. If you find one and you're interested in kind of what that entails, this is like a super strong Gwahaju. If you don't like Gwahaju, you probably won't like this. But if you've never had either, and you can get your hands on one of these because it's limited, pick one up. It's 13,600, not going to break the bank. It's worth a try. It's like a really florally, earthy, rooty makgeolli with an extra kick, and but without necessarily the harshness of all that extra alcohol, right? So, yeah. I don't say go out and buy it, but if you see this, and you probably will because they're at Lotte Marts everywhere, I believe, it's worth the 13,000. Don't drink one by yourself, though. Bad idea.